it's easy to just say bad client, but in reality, there was probably a failure in process or failure in communication.
Yes.
The people who can afford to build these houses are generally really good at something that is not construction. Any mistake or problem you should look forward to as an opportunity to get closer to your clients.
Yeah.
If everything goes right, then it's boring. And when something goes wrong, you go like, okay, here's what happened. And so here's what we're doing. If you can jump on it and really let them know that it's important to you.
Yeah.
And that's a way to have those real conversations. And so I was just like, that's an opportunity to get closer.
Why do we have fireplaces in Texas?
The use case for you to need this as a heat source is almost nothing.
Yeah.
Well, y'all, thanks for watching this episode of the In the House podcast. We got Eric Rauser on today with Rauser Construction here in Austin, Texas. And this is going to be a fun episode. So what we're going to do is, we're going to talk about some of our favorite details, architectural construction details. We're also going to get into a few of our pet peeves. And I'm really interested to hear, Eric, what some of your pet peeves are. And then, if we can, we'll touch a little bit on client relationships. And Eric, you had mentioned, I thought this was great, challenging this concept of what a bad client is. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts on that. Great. But hey, before we get into that, don't forget, subscribe, like the podcast, and share with a friend. But Michael, you got some fun, builder shout out?
Oh, you better believe it.
What?
Got two things. Well, okay, so partial shout out to Rauser Construction today because we have them on. I feel like
hey,
that
shout
was
out, guys. We
appropriate
want to highlight
for our builder
Rauser
highlight.
Construction today. Those guys are doing a bang up job over there.
They are. They're doing quality work, and we're really excited to have Eric on today. And
thank you so much.
He'll hear a little bit more his story. Usually the headline is outside of the house. Today it's inside the house.
Oh my gosh.
And this
You're
is
throwing a
about
curveball.
Inside the building.
it's dun, dun, dun. And this is about the podcast. We've are raising funds. We're about halfway through a sponsorship round for
That's
our
right.
podcast, and we're super excited. This is something that's kind of grassroots, just has started over the past couple of years, and we need extra hands on board, and to do that, we're bringing on some partners to help us. And there's two to do that. We kind of went through our metrics, the podcast. There's two things I just want to highlight. One is that 42% of our listeners are from Central Texas, and
Whoop, whoop. That's awesome.
We are really excited about that because that's the core of who this podcast is for. That's kind of the basis of our industry. And so we're, everyone in San Antonio, Austin area, keep listening. And the second thing is that we hit 80 consumption hours this month, which
That's good. That's good for us.
This past month, which is exciting. Average podcast hits around 20 to 30 per month.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And so, we've just seen a lot of growth recently, and we're really excited about it.
Yeah, no, we're extraordinarily blessed. We've got some positive traction on the the sponsorship route that you've mentioned. We got a lot of great feedback, and it's all thanks to you guys and gals that are listening, subscribing, and sharing.
Yeah.
That's very helpful for us and getting the message out there and promoting all these wonderful guests that we have on and sharing their knowledge and expertise with the industry. So we just want to continue to remind people, please subscribe, share, tell your friends who are maybe in the industry. There's a lot of really important stories that and discussions that we have, and we want to promote these people. So that's awesome. Thank you for highlighting that.
You betcha.
Go team. Good
team.
job.
Woo!
Hey,
Yay! Come on.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's really great.
A little pat on the back to ourselves.
What
never
you
do
guys
that.
do is really fantastic for this community, and that you are keeping it very local and keeping it very focused, and telling people's stories and letting them talk about how what is important to them. So it's really awesome. You're doing a
Thank
great
you.
job.
Thanks very much.
We're super excited about this industry. We love what we do, and we love to bring people on who also do.
Right.
Like you.
It's just like, I'm extremely passionate about construction. I mean, I live and breathe building and creating things.
Yeah.
And it's all I can think about all day.
Fun to make stuff.
Even when I'm in bed trying to go to sleep, I'm like, just building. This is, you can't turn it off. But it's like I want to get people as fired up about construction as I am. It's like I want to spread that passion out and get people fired up. But speaking of highlighting people's stories, Eric, it's an absolute pleasure to meet you finally in person, and
likewise.
I'm glad you decided to come on and
me too,
and speak to us. But I want to get your background. I mean, you have a very colorful history here in Austin. You got an interesting background, and I'm dying to hear your story and how you got to where you are today.
All right, I'll make it concise. So let's see. I'm an architect as well as a builder. I graduated from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo with a bachelor's of architecture, and then and that was a very long time ago. And moved to San Francisco and worked in an architecture firm there. And so right out of school, worked at a pretty big firm. It was a great learning environment, and they did a variety of work. And I think two interesting things happened. Number one, I met the person who would later become my wife. And we were, kind of coworkers and friends before so we're like lifelong collaborators. So, but the other interesting thing specifically about the conversation we're going to have today is one of the things I did initially while I was there. While I was, I just gotten hired, just out of school, needed to learn how to use their CAD program, and this was in the time where offices were kind of, mostly done transitioning over to CAD from hand drawing. But at this firm, there was this one holdout, this old grumpy guy who did all of their detailing.
Wow.
And did it all by hand.
No way.
And so the solution was that I just sat at his desk with the computer and sat hip to hip with this guy, and he would hand draw details and hand them over to me, and I would draw them into the computer.
Wow, that is awesome.
It was amazing because he knew everything.
Learning.
So I was just like, I wasn't afraid to ask, like, well, why did you do it that way? Like, why can't it just go around this way? And he's like, you can't do it that way because the guys don't like to do it in the field that way. Or this material will stretch over time, and if you try to do it that way, it's going to pull away. Or it's just like, it was all of the information that, like a detail shows just an assembly. But like when he was creating the detail, it had all of this intention about who was going to do it, and what, and what would work and what wouldn't, and what their preferences were. And so it's just like so much information in these details.
Such a valuable insight.
So awesome. I got to do that for several months of just drawing his details, and so that was a fantastic learning experience.
Did he gain that knowledge? Did he have any build experience, or is that just something that he learned over many years?
I probably asked him, but I don't remember. I was probably a little bit afraid of him, to be like, I was early 20s.
I get it.
But like, I wasn't afraid to ask questions about what I was doing, but I also just kind of was like, he'll tell me if he wants to.
Yes.
So he was great though. And
so what brings you to Austin?
So my wife and I moved back here. She's originally from Austin. Okay. We both had family here. So when we were ready to leave San Francisco, Austin was a good choice. And so that was 2004.
Okay.
And we moved here with the intention of starting our own architecture firm. And in the meantime, we bought a house and we're remodeling it. And then we also, to make money, the firm I worked at in San Francisco was an early adopter of ArchiCAD. And so, or ArchiCAD, I'm not sure how they say it. When I came here, I just called the ArchiCAD rep and just said like, hey, we're here from out of town. We're moving here. We know the software really, really well. And so can you just give me the name of everybody you've sold software to? And he did.
Nice. That's awesome.
So I was like, okay, great. And so then I just called all of them and picked up contract work where I could.
That's so smart.
And it was great. And so like, that was also lovely because I got to meet a lot of the community, and, you know, met a lot of architects, met a lot of builders.
Yeah.
Just kind of got the lay of the land for how things were done here.
Right.
And so that was another, you know, good education.
That's awesome.
And then you know, during that time I was also taking the exams and getting licensed.
Yeah.
And kind of, you know, we're doing some residential work, and was starting to kind of get involved with some builders and developers, and so kind of like things were starting to cook. And then in 2008, we had a recession and a baby.
Hey,
and so
that's a double whammy.
Yeah, those two things meant like, hey, it's time to get some real income.
Yeah.
And things are getting real. So so I made a round of calls of people I'd worked with before, and just said like, hey, do you have anything for me to draw? And one of the first people I called was Matt Reisinger.
Awesome.
And because I had done a set of plans for him for a house that he didn't build because of 2008. And so, yeah, so he was like, I called him and I was like, I'm, you know, looking for anything. And he's like, I don't have anything for you to draw, but I really need a project manager. He had a project in Lakeway and one in town, and he was just having a hard time covering both.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I can start tomorrow.
Yeah. I was like, yes.
And he's like, okay, great. And so then the next day I was like crawling under a house in Riker Woods, like,
Heck
you know,
yeah.
mapping the drains and
That's
figuring out
awesome.
what was going on. So,
Yeah.
and that was, that was 2008. And so I worked at Reisinger for 11 years.
That's
Wow.
awesome.
And that was wonderful, right?
Yeah.
It was like such a great, I mean, it was such a great time to be a builder in Austin.
Yeah.
You know, like things were just like, like things were just really evolving during that time, I feel like. And so, you know, it started out just me and Matt and a part-time bookkeeper. And then over the years, it was, you know, just like kind of growing and changing and adding things. And it was really exciting. It was a really great time.
That's very cool. And, you know, just a side note, I've met Matt, I think, on a couple occasions, and he probably would never remember meeting me, but you know, I don't know him very well, but one thing I've heard, and this is a compliment to him, is that he's one of those guys that, I mean, if you're in the industry and you call him up and ask for advice or ask for help, he's willing to, at a drop of a hat, to stop what he's doing and help somebody. I mean, and you can see that clearly, you know, through the build show and what he's doing with the build show and his channel. I mean, it's all education, is to try to help,
right?
And that's very much in his nature, is to like take somebody and try to help them when, you know, when they need something. So it's interesting to hear you say that.
And I think that's the spirit of Austin too. You know, that kind of openness. I mean, it was already present when I got here, and with some of the builders that I met. Yeah. But then, you know, Matt having kind of doubled down on that and also made it very public by going on YouTube. And really just sharing. You know, when we would figure out a detail, like how to do a recessed stucco detail, a complicated detail, he'd be like, we should share this with the, you know, the Custom Builders Council. We should have a lunch over here. I was like, great. You know, and so like we just, that was early on, and just has continued. And it's like, it takes effort to do that on Matt's part and everyone's part. So like I always try, and whenever I meet somebody new, I was like, hey, let's go get coffee, and, you know, and just
that's
be
awesome.
Available to answer any questions that you know a younger builder might have. So. It's
awesome.
I think, and I don't think that happens to this level in Austin, in places other than Austin.
I would agree. Like, I think other cities seem to, you know, everybody kind of sticks to their own. Boo them. Boo. And that's what I've noticed is like outside of Austin, the build quality really seems to drop. I'm not calling anybody out here, but you know, there are good builders in every city. I'm not saying it's all bad, but just from what I've heard, you know, in homes that are in Dallas or even in Houston or in San Antonio, just overall quality is just not what you would see here in Austin. It seems like, you know, Austin is a hub for just really, really talented architects and super talented builders. So, I mean, would you agree with that? I mean,
I'd agree with that. I think there's a kind of a special sauce that is like, you know, UT is like, you know, pooping out architects every year, a whole new batch of them, and they gotta work at something.
Doing something.
And so so you have lots of architects, lots of really talented architects, and you have a highly collaborative construction community, like we were just talking about. Like you can call anybody and say, like, I can call any builder in town that I don't know and say, like, hey, I saw this project that you guys were doing, and how did you do that detail? And they will tell you, and then they'll give you the phone number of the person who did it.
Yeah,
right? Like
true.
that just doesn't happen. And that kind of cross-pollination, it means that you're getting the right person on the job site to do the right thing, right? Like I'm not trying to figure out how to do everything on my own. Like I'm like the carpenters I'm working with on my job site were on your job site last week and on somebody else's job site last week, and so they're like that, sharing that experience for 3 different architects. Right. So like that kind of open is really great. But I also think we have a pretty design savvy community. Like the Homes Tour being whatever 40 years old or whatever it is, has been a really good kind of training for people to kind of know what it is, the difference between a really well designed house by an architect and a house that is like has fancy finishes and might be in the parade of homes, but doesn't have that same kind of spatial magic that an architect had.
It's interesting because like comparative to other Texas cities, Austin's on the smaller side, right? Like I always say, our market like is probably by numbers smaller than these other cities, but you're looking at some of the quality is higher in some areas, and I'm wondering too if the concentration of that helps in some ways. You're still having some of those high level projects and standards, but you're doing it in a smaller community, so it's those touch points. There's more opportunity for touch points. I think there might be something there as well. It's tighter community. I mean, I always say it's always when I'm talking with a homeowner or something or client about prices we get from a subcontractor or something, I'm like, listen, these subs are motivated to not undercut, and they're motivated to not to not screw you because they're gonna see me again, like
it's a small community.
And it's a small community, right? So it's not like they can kind of go hide in the market at large because it's just not that big,
right?
So I don't know. I think there's something there too, where there's a little bit of eyes on the street kind of level of we can point out and say, hey, that over there's something going on. That's I don't know, some standard.
Well, to go back what you said earlier about sharing details, what I am really interested to get into is some of your favorite details.
So this is kind of a something that happens on some projects where you have a beam. In this case, it was a structural beam, and then there was sheathing, like a tongue and groove, a ceiling that's visible in between the beams, right?
Yep.
Those beams are structural, so they're going to come first, and then the floor is going to get laid on top of it, and the floor decking, and we have a channel in there to run electrical and put J boxes for lights. But you've also seen this detail where it's sometimes it's not structural, but it has to go in before the rest of the finishes do.
Right. Sure.
And so what ends up happening is you have a beam, a 4x12 or whatever, and then later, like months later it finishes, you come and you put the TNG in like cut pieces that are somehow magically going to fit in between those beams and look like it was there all
align.
And so the simple fix here is, if you go back to the sketch, this is drawn by Roberto, one of my former project managers. And so this is just a simple fix. So you like notch the beam when you install it, and then you have blocking back there so that when the beam comes in, the subfloor goes in, and then you can run all your electrical, do everything you need to do. And then later at finishing, when you have the carpenter, that carpenter is then toothing those boards and just resting them on top. So that hides that joint, because like that joint, getting it perfect and getting it in there is impossible. If your saw is slightly, then you're going to get a bunch of broken teeth. And so letting it sit up there. It from below, it looks like it's running behind, and it just kind of completes that idea. And you can grain match boards because you've saved so much time in not trying to like perfectly fit all of those. You can take the time and kind of like, okay, we're gonna make sure that the grain is running past the beam, so you're cutting those pieces and running it through, and suddenly it's like like transformative, right?
Yeah.
But in fact, probably cheaper in the long run.
More efficient
than doing the.
I mean, man, getting like input from the trades early on in the project development is so critical, because I mean, there's so many times where, in my experience, a designer or architect will draw something and it just totally doesn't make sense, and you're like, that's not really how this is going to go together in the field. Mm-hmm. So I love to get whether it's a carpenter or a tile setter or a mason involved early on, and say, hey, look, this is what's drawn. This is the expectation that we're trying to achieve, but really, they're just like your sketch here. Yeah, there's a more efficient way to go about doing and achieving the same detail. So let's brainstorm here, because dude, these guys are the ones with the hands-on experience, building stuff. Like, they're going to look at it and say, oh no, that's easy. That's, we're sitting here spinning our wheels trying to come up with something. They're like, I've done this before. We'll just do this. And
that's truly the joy of moving from, so like you did the opposite, but moving from architecture to construction is like, I love those details. I love seeing all but I have access to ask questions to the people who are going to execute them.
Right. Yes.
And
ask questions. My gosh.
I can be like, hey,
what are you thinking here?
This might be a dumb idea, but I thought I would talk it through with you. And they're like, oh yeah, that's a piece of cake. We can totally do that. Or they're like, oh, what you should do is this. And they have a better idea. Yeah. And so that is hands down, when you go to architecture school, they beat into you. What are you going to do for the profession? Right? It's like,
yes, definitely.
It's like they deprogram you, and it's like, what are you doing to advance the profession?
Yes.
And like, that's kind of, so like, this is where that's how I derive joy and professional satisfaction. Is like,
another thing that I see on that too is that there's a blocking above that the wood ceiling, whatever the finished material is, and oftentimes I see that the wood ceiling up against whatever the subfloor is,
right?
And having that extra space. I mean, you pointed out for J-boxes, running wires, but even shimming, getting that wood plane, perfectly flat. Yeah, it goes a long way.
Yeah, for sure.
The carpenters always cuss less, I find, whenever that they have
a little bit of built-in fudge room. little design it in there, man. Just give it a little bit of wiggle room to get it perfect. Yeah.
All right. What we got next?
That was fantastic. That's a good example.
Maybe go to the roof edge detail is another good one. So you can see how the wood it looks like it's running past.
It looks like it's continuous, but it's actually individual planks. But that's another good point, is even if you did adopt this method, getting the grain and color to look continuous, that's another really tricky.
Right.
You got to make sure it follows all the way through. Yeah.
Yeah. But if you don't do that, then you've kind of defeated the purpose.
Yeah. It just looks stupid.
A little
checkerboardy.
Especially with stuff that has a high figure like this. So.
That looks awesome. Yeah. Really beautiful.
This project we did with Anderson Wise, and it's kind of like got this nice austerity to it, very quietness. That is a stucco finish over CMU, so you can get the depth of the wall like a masonry wall. And so it's really, really cool. But originally they had a standard drip cap over the top of that. And so somewhere in this folder, there's a sketch that kind of shows what we.
Well, and look at how minimal the roof profile is there. I mean, it's just
I like this
little
detail here,
little slice of roof on top.
That eave, that overhang,
and it has half round gutters that get applied later. But with something that kind of quiet visually. A big honkin' drip cap that then like kind of miters together weirdly at the peak.
It
doesn't feel great. Originally it had a drip cap down over the front, and what we suggested was let's do a steel angle, and then we'll just wrap that last panel, a roof panel, and clip it over the front of that steel angle that's just anchored back.
I see. So this black is your angle support.
That's actually just the corner bead of the stucco.
Oh, okay.
And the red that goes all the way back to framing. So that gets installed early because you have to install it early because you want to.
That's right.
So you put that on once you've framed, and then you can be doing stuff like the exterior insulation and the masonry. And the masons and the stucco guys can come up to that, and that also separates from schedule when you do the roofing. The roofing can come and just clip on that thing.
Wow. Yep. That's really clean.
Yeah, and it just it didn't cost much. It doesn't. There's no sacrifice as far as the weatherproofness of any of this, because all of that waterproofing's back at the framing anyway. Yeah. And it just makes it nice and clean. And so then we hold the central vent off of the first one. So from the below, you're really just seeing that line.
Sharp line. Yeah. That's really clean.
So that's another fun one. And this comes up on, it has come up now on several projects.
Yeah. That's so interesting. Yeah.
But it's like, okay, now all of a sudden you took something that had a standard detail, and you've, without adding any cost or done anything, you've just kind of made it a little bit more.
Yeah, you've elevated that.
And it, like I always love doing the things that I feel like I can understand the architect's intent. Yeah. And then kind of like, okay, how about
the dial
this? Would this and they're like, yeah, that sounds great.
That's awesome.
Man, you're so right. This is really cleans up that roof line there. I mean, that having that 1.5 or 2 inch drip cap profile would have just really kind of junked up this
and then you're worried about the color of that, because is it is it the same color as the roof? Is it going to be paint grip? Is that going to weather over time? And so anyway, so
that's really subtle. It's like it's one of those things I probably would have never seen just right off the bat, but now that you were taking the time to highlight that, like that's really, really clever. I like that. I'm going to steal that one.
Yeah, please do. That's why these are out of here.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Let's look at the detail first. So this is something we've done with Alta Studio a few times.
Nice.
Where instead of, again, this is eliminating a drip cap. So like instead of having that big drip cap over the top of the masonry, we have done, and this is another one where you really need to get the mason and the roofing guy and everybody kind of on the same page to make sure that everyone feels comfortable about this.
Yeah, it's some coordination.
But we're essentially just like cutting a continuous slot in the top course of masonry and then wet setting the flashing in there. And that flashing is just laid up over the top of the other flashing that then is heat seamed into the roofing material.
Right.
And so that, again, our actual waterproofing is happening behind that masonry anyway. Right. But, we're shedding water through there, and everything is protected, and we use, Alumaflash. So we take that waterproofing very seriously. Yeah. But the end result is like, if you go back to the photos, it turns like a standard wall. You can pick any one of those.
Where you just don't see the cap at the top. It's just a masonry wall.
Like, that's kind of what we want a masonry wall to look like, right? Exactly. We don't want
kind of what it should be.
Yeah, you just want it to look like this big masonry wall, not a masonry wall with another thing on top of it.
Right. That is gorgeous, man.
Yeah. And so it's just...
Okay, I take it back. I'm stealing this detail. Because it's funny, because I have...
You only get to choose one.
I know. I'm stealing them all. Because I have this exact condition on a job that I'm doing right now.
Hey, there you go.
And I proposed... It wasn't this specifically, but I proposed something else to eliminate that drip cap. And the architect's response was like, no, we'll just go with the drip cap.
Okay, so question for you here.
Yeah.
When you have a set of plans, you're kind of in this coordination, you're either mid-construction and you're, kind of planning scope, or you're early on. How do you go through and kind of have that discussion with an architect? Because, it can be kind of tricky, because you want, you kind of want everyone to be on the same page about quality expectations, right? And so there's, you kind of to hit the home run like you did here, you have to have the architect, you, and the tradesman or craftsman all aligned.
Right.
So how do you kind of, and because you're kind of the primary one, navigating those conversations.
Yeah, I think first I talk it through with the team, right, to make sure everybody thinks it's an okay idea, and then internally at Rauser, and then I'll usually talk to the subs first. These things kind of percolate as I'm doing early pre-construction stuff and starting to see that detail and thinking through, like, when I start to see the details and think like, oh, that's not how I imagined it, or like, oh, I wonder if we could do this. So that's when those things percolate. So it's usually there's plenty of time.
Cool.
And then I'll talk through it with the subs. The other benefit of limiting our size to 4 projects at a time is, like, I'm on the job sites a lot and interacting with the subs a lot. And so there can be an informal, it's like, if I send an email to, someone like, hey, I need you to give me an answer on, is this a good idea or not? Like, that's just not the right way of kind of talking about things that may be a crazy idea. But if I'm like on site and we're talking and I go like, oh, hey.
You're like holding the stone and you're pointing and draw, that's way better.
It's a much more casual way, which is also just fun for me. And it lets them kind of weigh in on stuff. So it is a process. And then, once I know that this is something that could be possible, then I generally talk to the architect and say like, hey, what do you think about this? Because I don't want to give them an idea of something that's possible if it's not possible. And okay, so this next one is the steel fascia. Okay, this comes up on a lot of projects. There's a lot of different ways to handle this detail and this is the detail where it's a modern house and there's a flat roof and a very pronounced, kind of steel and pronounced edge that the architect has just kind of initially drawn as just something.
Big block of something.
And so this also kind of dovetails into the pet peeves section, because one of my pet peeves
excited to get into that section
is sheet metal fascia, because it just doesn't ever look good.
Nope.
And you can try and you can make it look less bad, but it's not anyone's fault, right? It's just
the inherent nature of the material.
And it's in such an unforgiving aspect.
We're talking specifically about the oil canning, if you're not catching on. So oil canning is a term to describe, basically the rippling that you see in sheet metal as it heats and cools throughout the day. You're going to see it expand and it just warps. And I know exactly what you mean. It's just on the intent is a flat piece of steel, and you do it out of sheet metal. It's not flat. It's rippled and it looks like crap.
And the intent is for that fascia. It's communicating structure, right? So that's why it seems weird that would be something that's flimsy because it's the primary visual component of the roof. You're like, wait, is the roof flimsy? Is that what's being communicated here? This is weird.
And so then there's a lot of ways to solve this, and we've done a lot of these projects, and some of them sometimes you use. So I think early on we tried 12-inch MC, so like a really long, tall, narrow steel channel. And what's sometimes hard for people to understand, it took me a while, is that steel's not perfect. It's very far from perfect. And so it comes out of it comes out to the site and you're expected to kind of weld these things together, but you're trying to join these two ends together and they might be off by 3/4 of an inch. And so then you have to like grind one of them down and bond.
Because that's all structural stuff that you're ordering it from a company who's producing volume amounts of that, right? And
different steel different sections have different tolerances. And for whatever reason, that MC12 is a pretty bad, pretty bad
big
one.
Tolerance.
Big tolerance.
Gotta be a lot of different things.
You've seen how it's made, right? I mean, it's like taking Play-Doh and just shoving it and rolling it through an extruder and out the other side. But it's a hot piece of steel, and they just form it and they run it through, and that's your steel member. And there's tolerances that it varies from piece to
pretty good.
piece.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
So there's a lot of ways
the
to
sound
fix
effects,
to
right?
fix that.
Yeah, that's great.
But you can't use anything that's thinner than 1/8 inch on that, because it will still move, and even 1/8 inch will move. And then the question is like, okay, how do you mount it? Like, also on this project, there were very long, like over 100-foot long runs.
Oh wow.
And so like that is going to have a lot of expansion and contraction. And so how do you plan for those slip joints in a way that they don't, you want something to slip and move, but as soon as you give it any movement, it's going to peel away. And then you've created the shadow line.
Yeah.
And it's such a unforgiving critical light condition up there that any imperfection is just going to jump out at you.
That's really good.
And so this was a solution that Alter Studio and Drophouse and Rauser kind of came up with on this project.
Cool.
And it's got I hope Alter Studio is okay with me showing this, but apologies.
Yeah.
It's got a bracket at the top that then the plates are prefabbed, and they have that angle on top, so you can put the cleat in, screw it from the top, and then from the bottom you're screwing through from the bottom at down there, and then we kind of fill that with a little like coroplast cover panel.
Yeah.
And so that's but the critical point are these cleats that kind of are between the panels so that they stay aligned
right here,
but they slide back and forth as it, and so like if you go to there's a bunch of photos in this one, but go to one of the photos, like I went up and got on the scaffolding and took a picture down, and just to see how
look at that reflection
flat that turned
with
out
the
to be.
horizon,
and
there.
that's a very, very long run. Like that's like
that's
more than 50 feet long. Of this. So it's just
the cleat is welded to one panel.
Yeah, there's a cleat on the top
and
a cleat on the bottom.
Yep.
And then there's a cleat on the wall that gets screwed in. And so you can adjust that cleat for straightness.
Right.
And then once that is all adjusted nicely, then you're hanging the panel on it and setting it in and screwing it in. And there's, I'm making it sound a lot easier than it actually is.
It's a lot of work.
There's still a lot of adjustment that has to happen in order to make
that
make that work.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Cool.
And so yeah, like that's a really fun one.
I love it.
Well, that is precarious right there.
Oh yeah, there's a great picture of Jackson, one of the Drophouse welders who was doing the structural. I don't have it in here, but he's like on
look at
this huge beam that's sticking out over the edge of the hill. And it looks like those old photos from the 20s of like dudes
like the
like
New
steel
York
workers.
Yeah.
That was his New York moment. So anyway, that's the pictures. I think that's
that's awesome. I'm familiar with this view here.
Yeah,
this big oculus here, and that's the right term, right? Oculus?
I think so.
I believe so.
Wow.
That sounds right.
I don't want to sound like a total idiot.
There are 2 oculuses in this project, so you can call them oculi.
Whoa!
Like you add that one to your repertoire.
Thanks for watching this episode of the In the House podcast. Join us next time for part 2 of our talk with Eric. Thanks, guys.